I did teach a studio in the fall, and it was all online only because there were a lot of uncertainties. And I will share with you a little bit of the final elements of the final design. Some of you who have known of my studio, we typically have two short warm-up exercises at the front end. We do a plant visit. We do a lot of hands-on, and we have visits from the two plants that are in our vicinity, Tyndall and Metromont. We also have workshops with Ray and US Formliners. Again, there's a lot of interactions and travel. So literally, needless to say, all of that went out the window by the time we were starting classes. Clemson had decided at the very beginning of the summer that we were coming live, and pretty much 2 weeks before the semester started, the provost decided to push back the starting date as a live classes to September. So it was a mandate to actually start online. It pretty much put everybody on their toes to scramble and figure out how we were going to do the classes. And really the protocols for courses, especially studios, were not in place at the very beginning. By the end of that first month where we were scheduled to come live in mid-September, it was clear that most of the classes might be able to stay online if they wish. It was also clear that students did not have a mandate to actually be in person if they didn't feel safe, and likewise the faculty. So pretty much everybody in the university across the whole campus defaulted to online classes only. I had thought that this would come and then sort of plan ahead to do a few things. The basic difference that I had in studio was, number one, we had team projects throughout this whole semester. This actually proved to be very beneficial to keep a sense of community when a class was totally online. So having everybody working in teams really helped a lot too. To do that sense of a studio that it was totally lost only because we were not present. Some students actually were in Clemson, and they were actually having access directly to resources such as a laser cutter and 3D printer. Since they were working in teams, they took sort of advantage of having one person being in charge of these parts of the studio or the design. And that sort of, once again, helped to bring together a sense of community among the students. The studio was a relatively small studio, 9 students. They work in teams of 3 only because of the odd numbers. And so we ended up having 3 teams. I did implement 2 things different in this semester. I mean, certainly no travel. We didn't go to visit a plant, and I think that was a big problem. The university had literally just blocked any kind of travel, even though there was a possibility, not officially to travel, but to say that we were going to meet at a plant. We wouldn't call it a travel, and so happened to be all there at the same time, at the same day, and then maybe we could just go around. Well, that quite didn't happen, only because about 4 of the 9 students were not even in Clemson. So that proved to be was going to be a challenge, and I think that was a big drawback of the way that the studio had run, not having the possibility of do live visit to a plant and then do the kinds of things that we do when we visit a plant. We fabricate a panel, we strip the panel, we apply the finishes, we talk to the engineers, we talk to the plant managers, we talk to the salespeople. They consult with the projects with the students. So unfortunately, none of that was able to be happening live, even though we had a couple consulting sessions with engineers from Tyndall. What I did take advantage was of bringing a lot of guest lecturers. So we had Mo Wright from Gate coming and doing a lecture. We had also people from Tyndall presenting some of their more signature projects. We had 3 engineers, which was interesting. 3 engineers located in 3 different plants across the country from Tyndall were talking to the students about some of their signature projects. We had Peter Vincent pretty much constantly on a short call coming in and visiting the reviews. I did do something very different this semester, which was I started a program as a pilot, as I always do. I start trying out things. If they work, I keep doing them. And in this case, I reach out to some of the PCI studio alums that have graduated and have worked actually in offices or currently working in offices to come in and be consultants for the studio. So it was once again a way to try to build a community and bring some of the old knowledge of the previous students back into the studio. That proved to be a very, very successful initial test. I think a lot in part, there was a lot of enthusiasm for both the alums and the current students. I think the fact that most of them were working from home allowed them to have a lot of flexibility to come and then consult the students on the project. Looking to repeat the experience this semester. It's going to be a challenge because this semester I have 21 students, so I went from 9 to 21, big jump. As usually, I'm adapting and changing rather quickly. This semester, the class is fully online, and I decided to do that because, once again, the university was giving kind of mixed signals of how things were going to play. And in order to give the students literally a clear guidelines of what to expect when they would come, they let the faculty decide how they wanted to run the studio. I decided to run it fully online. One thing I did last semester, I did 4 complete projects, rather quick turnarounds. The last project, the one I'm about to show you, was in collaboration with Skidmore, Owens and Merrill. I always try to involve a professional practice with our class. Some of you have seen the projects that I presented at the PCI convention, or the students have presented in the posters with my work with the Department of State and the embassies. That also was paired with a trip to Washington, D.C. Well, guess what? No trip, no Washington, D.C., no embassies. But I did have a chance to work very closely with one of my dear friends and colleagues from the office, New York office of Skidmore, Owens and Merrill. And they gave us actually a real project, which is another thing I always try to do in the studio, a project that is sort of up and coming and exciting. It was a project that to me had the right scope because we did sort of very localized intervention in a very large scale development that SOM is doing in the Middle East. We actually did 2 target interventions within the large complex. One was a design of a generic enclosure system for a building, for multi-use building, and the other one was a high canopy for providing shade. So I'll be showing you a couple of these projects from the students' work. Our site was actually in Abu Dhabi, and in particular near the international airport in Abu Dhabi. The projects that we had, or the students had, they had to design a large scale and long span canopy for shading and climate control, and a wall screening system. And there was a mosque that was an option, but it was mandatory for the graduate students in the course. This was part of our research that I'm doing with my colleagues at Buffalo, and as well as Brendan Ross, who some of you know, with our research with the National Science Foundation. So students look at patterns. This particular team will look at the Penrose pattern as a catalyst to design actually all the 3 systems of the canopy and 2 envelopes that they produce. So I'll quickly go through some of these images of precast systems that they put together. They did a lot of 3D printing and a lot of digital work as well. And this was one of the solutions. Second team was looking at more in particular the thesis structures, which is part of the research that we're doing. This is an overall view of what the complex was. So there was a series of large different buildings of different functions. We didn't get into the design of the buildings. We focus only on the canopy and the interior design. The exterior design of the exterior envelope. So another project from another students. They were looking at the crochet tiles. So in this case, there was one single tile that, depending on how it was rearranged, they were able to actually, there were, I think, 92 buildings in the complex, and they were able to create patterns for more than 600 possible designs. So they said, every single building could be totally different using exactly the same panel, which is the 6x6 that you see right here. And the way that it would be arranged, it would create just a different kind of view, which is, I think, one of the things that I'm very interested in studying and researching. This was from the group that was the graduate students. So they look at elements of culture and the elements in terms of the concept of some of the patterns of the traditional Islamic tiles, did their own reinterpretation of some of the tiles, and applied, once again, the similar idea that it's a basic unit that can be casted and then rearranged as a panel in different ways. They incorporated solar panels into this high canopy as well. And once again, the idea was to take just one single element, the fundamental unit that gets repeated and rearranged in different manners. What you're looking at here is just the selections of some of the wall panel systems that they created with these walls, and a few renderings of that. There you see the integration of the building plus the canopy as well. And this particular group, the grad students, did design the envelope of a mosque. We had one of my former students who actually is from Iraq and who's an expert in Islamic patterns and computation of Islamic designs, be also a consultant to the studio. So they were very pleased to have a level of expertise that will help them navigate through this rather difficult project. And at the same time, my former student was very happy to actually work and interact with them. This is some of the last images of that, and I think that's it. Turns out that this semester, I never teach a studio in the spring, but this semester I was asked to come and see if I could. It also was given almost as a short notice, and I said I'll do it. And given the fact that this was perhaps one of the most successful students I've had in the past, I decided to look to repeat exactly the same model as being online. We're going to be working once again with Skidmore, Owens and Merrill. Just don't have details of what kind of project they're going to be looking to give us. But the first three projects that are sort of warm-up projects are going to be exactly the same and identical. We're going to have make an effort to actually this semester do a visit to the plant, and I already put it on the schedule sometime in mid-February. So that's already there. Even if not everybody can come, we'll make arrangements for those of students who are not able to travel or perhaps decide not to actually do the trip to the plant to still find a way to participate remotely. But at least a visit to the plant, it's on the schedule. We're going to be doing team projects as well, especially with such a large studio. Like I said, 21 students, that's can be daunting. But I'm really looking forward to this new experience. I think learning and building from the lessons that we did in the fall and coming into the spring with really a renewed energy. I think I'm looking really forward to working a very successful studio.